Mm. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Sharon?
I'm doing okay. Getting
Good.
a little hairy this morning. I
Yeah,
I had
what's
a painter
going on?
in the house, and he wanted to paint the It's actually the exterior being painted, but he wanted to paint the windowsills in a room where a child was having school. So we had to switch things around. It was very exciting, and
Mhm.
but we're doing okay. And I
Good.
did forget my tea, but I have water.
I forgot any beverage at all, so I guess we're not really having coffee with Jen and Sharon this morning. I mean, you might be having coffee, but neither of
Yeah.
us have coffee, so full disclosure on that one. So today we're talking about how to handle it when you receive unwanted criticism from your children,
Yes.
which
And
never happens. It
we
never
were just
happens.
saying when we popped on this morning, ooh, we're clashing. And I said, I bet our kids would have something to say about that. Because look at all these colors we have going on, and Jen's
I know.
wall, and you even have something behind you on the couch that's pink, which would work
Yeah.
except for my. But yeah, do you get criticism on your clothing, Jen?
Um, Very rarely, I have to
Ooh,
say. And I will say on the converse side of that, when they compliment something I'm wearing, I feel amazing. Like, wow, they like what I had. And it even better is when they ask to borrow something of mine. Then
wow.
that is like a true like good moment. I've made it. Um, so no, they tend not to criticize appearance, which is I think a lovely thing. I think I get criticized the most about technology and
Oh, I forgot that one on my list.
the lack of smart regarding technology. And the two things that come to mind in particular are how bright my phone screen is. They're like, Mom, I can see that from outer space. It's so bright. And I'm like, yeah, but I wear glasses. I'm old. I need the light to be able to see, as well as the font size. They think that's hilarious too, how big the font size is on my phone. And that's one of those like, okay, you just wait. Someday this will be you. And the other thing that really seems to tick them off for some reason is that I actually go and I put in my code to be able to access my camera to take a picture. Yes, I know. I don't have to. I just do. I don't know why, but for some reason that just really annoys the heck out of them.
Muscle memory.
I guess.
I get
So
in trouble
what are you
for.
falling down in the job about, Sharon? What are you getting
Well,
criticized
now that you remind me about the tech issue, I get in trouble with my son, who's a teenager, all the time because I don't close all the programs or apps or whatever. I guess they're apps on my phone. So you like scroll up and there literally be like 50 programs or
Yeah.
apps. Gosh darn it. Open on my phone.
Yeah.
It's
So
like,
yeah,
Mom, this is too.
they clean them out for you. It's like making it rain. They clean out all your
Yeah.
apps for you. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
and it turns out he might be right because my phone did sort of crash last week and nobody told me that that was why. But I don't exactly treat my technology very well. So it
Mm-hmm.
might indeed be valid criticism. Oh, and we were inspired by this article on your team that has some really great tips
Yeah.
by Amy Patrol on how to deal with this. And one of the things that she says is, what if they're right when they
Yeah.
critique you?
I know that is the thing is that I think there's two different approaches here. I mean, there are times when they might give you criticism and you're like, okay, that's just not valid. That might require one response, but I think if they call you out on something and it's valid, we have to be the bigger person and say, you're right. I never thought about that. There have been times when maybe my kids have reminded me that paper is not a renewable resource. Perhaps we could use the cloth napkins. And I really want to say, okay, but I'm not the one taking a half an hour shower. But that's not the time to have that rejoinder. We have to let them sometimes be right. and show that they can be right. But then, I mean, so what do you do though if there's something that they criticize you about that you just feel like, no, that's not fair? I mean,
Or it's none of their business. Like
oh,
we get so much feedback on decisions that are parent decisions that are minor. It's not like anybody's right or wrong. It's just that, we get to decide what color we're going to paint that room. And
oh,
you would be shocked at the amount of critique, or that we got rid of that rug, or don't like the rug we picked out. I'm like, you know what? This is just a parent decision. Someday you'll have your own house.
yeah,
And I don't
there's
want to hear that.
there's a
And
couple of stop phrases that I think are
kind of
helpful
an
to use.
ongoing thing.
Sometimes we'll say things like, okay, we'll take it under advisement, and then you just move on. Yeah. You just have to have a few, like when my kids were little and they wanted to tattle on each other about silly things, like she took the last of the cereal, or so-and-so poked me. I'm like, okay, duly reported. I'll make a note of it. Like, sometimes they just need to lodge the complaint and then you can move on.
Now, Jen, are there any kinds of criticism that actually hurt your feelings? Like that you take personally? I was thinking about this morning.
I'm sure that there are. Yes. Do you have one to share?
Well, I'm kind of embarrassed because it's so silly, but I think it actually bugs me when they complain about my cooking, because
it's hard.
It's relentless. It's like nobody is ever pleased, and I feel like, one, I'm not that bad at cook. Two, I don't really like cooking. That's a confession. I like to cook things that I like to eat, but I don't find cooking relaxing, or like just like something that I would do in my free time, or nurturing. It's like I do it because I have to eat and I want it to taste good. And like sometimes I'm busy, and if I go through all that work of making a meal, and then, just my husband likes it, or one child likes it, and the other one's like, why you make this? I don't like this. We've had this conversation so many times. So it's to a point where I need to let it go. And I think I'm getting better about that, because I don't know. That's a whole.
No, I feel you. I feel you. I think you and I may have been separated at birth, because that happens in my house too. But one of the things that is nice is that when your kids are old enough and you can ask them to step up and make a meal, all of a sudden they have a lot more empathy for you, because they're like, oh, only 2 of the 4 people liked this meal that I slaved over for 4 hours. I'm like, yeah, that's the way sometimes as good as you're gonna get. So I guess empathy would be the watchword for all of this. It's so hard to have empathy in that moment, but one of the things I try to remember is that our kids are getting constantly, in their mind at least, criticized by their teachers, by their peers, by their older siblings, and by us. So it probably feels kind of good to be able to give a little pushback sometimes. And it hurts our feelings, but maybe we have to empathy to say, oh, yeah, I remember. It does feel rotten when somebody doesn't like what you made, or how you approach something, or what you wore. And those are small things. We have to, you're right, we kind of have to let it go sometimes.
And
as hard as that
what's that?
And we can complain to each other about it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, one important thing that the article pointed out too was that it's not about us, and that it's perfectly normal for kids to be differentiating at this age. It's kind of like, when all of a sudden your teenager doesn't want to hang out with the rest of the family in the living room. They're in their room and they're like, I'm going to do that on my own. Or it's kind of, I guess it's kind of the verbal equivalent of that. It's like, I'm not like everybody else. I have my own opinions. I do things my own way. So it's not really about us. And I think I'm much better. I think I may have mentioned this in a previous coffee, that like when I'm feeling good and calm and well rested, I'm just so much more able to understand that. And,
Hmm.
when we're stressed, as we all are right now,
Yeah.
um, it's just that one thing that puts you over the edge sometimes. But I guess it always comes back to, taking care of those fundamentals for us so that we're able to, be the adult. Mhm.
Mm. I guess we should also look at it in a really strange sort of way as a compliment, because it means that they feel safe enough to speak to us about what's on their mind. We're a safe place to give that criticism, whether it's warranted or not. They sometimes we might differ on some big issues, politics, or I don't know, family values, things that we think, wait, they don't feel the same way that we do. But I'm glad that they feel like they can say what's on their mind instead of maybe just complaining to their friends about us, which is not to say they're not doing both, and that's valid.
Right.
Okay too. But yeah, it's I guess it all comes down to having to be the adult. You're right. That's not so much
I have a
fun.
question for you, Jen.
All right.
What were you critical of your parents when you were a teenager and a young adult? And like,
Oh, yes.
and what were your favorite topics of criticism?
Oh, I loved to tell my dad, like when he was just so out to lunch on whatever was the like politically correct or astute thing of the day. Like he maybe he would use a term that I'm like, Dad, nobody uses that term anymore. And I won't even say what the terms were, because I'm sure whatever terms we're using are probably offensive to our kids too. But it was just that thing. It's like a generational thing. Like, you are just so not with it. Let me educate you as to what is the correct way to look at this issue.
For
So
sure. Does that end when we become actual adults, that we don't do that with our parents anymore? I
think
try not to.
I think we learn to be a little more diplomatic about it, and we have some kind of perspective. Like, they were raised in this era, and we were raised in this era, and we look at things a little differently. And also, I mean, people still grow. I mean, my parents have grown on issues, so societal issues that I
guess
you
we'll
need
grow too.
So hopefully we will. Hopefully we'll continue to grow, and take in that hurtful criticism and try to figure out what's the nut of it, and is it really something we need to change about, or is it just we need to put it behind us.
I know one little thing that I used to be very critical of was the temperature the thermostat was set at. That was
Yes.
before I was paying the bill.
Uh-huh.
And now,
put a sweater on.
Literally, because my house is so old and drafty that to heat it to like a really comfy short sleeve temperature would be, exorbitantly expensive. We're not doing that. So now when my family comes to visit me, I say, bring your slippers, bring your sweaters, because I want you to be comfortable.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I take my slippers with me wherever I go. I'm like, a little old lady. I bring my slippers and my shawl, because
Your shawl.
I know I'm getting old. So yeah. But the same parents who told me to put a sweater on or do some jumping jacks to stay warm, I go visit them now, and I wear like the lightest shirt I have because it's stiflingly hot there.
Well,
what can you do?
That's our prerogative once we're in our senior years, I guess.
Looking forward to it. So
yeah.
All right. So what was the name of this article, in case people want to go find it?
Oh goodness, I have it here. It was something about I can't do anything right, which
I'll put it.
Let's see.
Oh,
you put it.
Thank you, Jessica.
Oh, it's already there. Yay. Okay.
There it is.
Well, I want to know what everybody else can do right. Like, we should have a prize for the funniest one. I'm trying to think if there's anything really funny that I did get in trouble this week I made macaroni and cheese with the dinner because we were having halibut or something. And I'm like, well, I'll make macaroni and cheese and throw the kids a bone. And one of the children said I did it wrong. Boxed macaroni and cheese that I've been making since I was 10, because I put the butter in before the cheese powder. But I was supposed to put the cheese. Anyway, But I got in big trouble for that. So,
Okay. Well, I guess that might be, it's time to have somebody else step up and take over that job, huh?
absolutely, I'm all for it. But
Well,
I'd love to hear what funny things people got in trouble for.
yes. And try that out and report back and let me know how that goes, by the way.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Tell us what you've been criticized for this week. We promise not to judge. And join us again next week for Coffee with Jen and Sharon at 10:30 on Wednesdays.
Yep, I'll bring my
Wait,
my
do we have
mug that time.
Are you doing something else this week, Sharon? I think you're doing.
Tomorrow I'm going to be talking to Katie Hurley, who's a licensed social worker and author, about positive thinking for teens. So she's going to tell us all what we need to know, and it seems like such perfect timing for right now when positive thinking is hard to find.
She's great.
So that's tomorrow at 10:30.
Tomorrow at 10:30. Okay. She's also the author of No More Mean Girls, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I like her.
So we'll touch on that too.
Okay, and then
Lots
tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm hosting a little chat with somebody to talk about financial aid for college. So if you have questions about that, there's a link on our website to join. It's a Zoom webinar, so you have to join up for that. So
I should come to that. I have a high schooler now.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
We'll see you next time. Bye.